Rio Grande City Mayoral Debate 2015. Before I begin, I would like to thank each and every one of you all for helping out with the Stark County Young Voters fundraiser. Funding will be used to host workshops to educate the young voters on the importance of voting. My name is Heidi Elaine Saenz, and I am the Vice President of the student organization, the Stark County Young Voters. Here at the Rio Grande City Mayoral Debate, we will have a zero tolerance for audience heckling or outbursts. Bad language and harassing language will not be tolerated. You will be escorted out. We ask everyone to please be courteous and to silence your phones and to keep quiet so we can all have to, so we can be able to hear what the candidates each have to say. I will now like to introduce you to the moderator, Dr. Adrian Guerra. Dr. Adrian Guerra graduated from Roma High School in 1994 and enrolled at the University of Texas at Austin to study music. In 1997, he accepted the position of head choir director of the Roma Independent School District. He completed his bachelor's degree in music education from the University of Texas Pan American, along with his Texas teacher certification. He obtained a master's degree in educational leadership from the University of Texas Pan American in 2005 and completed his Texas principal certification. Dr. Guerra was admitted to the Boston University doctoral program in 2006 and obtained his doctoral of music arts degree in the spring of 2014. His dissertation is titled Perceptions of Secondary Level Ensemble Directors Regarding Teachers' Evaluations in Texas Public Schools. Through his mixed methods study, Dr. Guerra explored how Texas music teachers feel about the way their teaching is evaluated and the ways in which the evaluation methods could be improved. Mr. Guerra will now flip the coin, so our candidates Joel Barrial and Jay Peña can give you a brief 3 minutes introduction before the questions for the mayoral debate begins. Mr. Peña will have heads and Mr. Barrial will have tails.
Most nerve-wracking thing for me to do. Flipping of a coin. It is heads.
So that means Jay Peña should go ahead and choose the table.
We're flipping to the blue table.
And Mr. Barrial. Thank you all.
Thank you. I will offer a few remarks before we begin. Good evening and welcome to the Rio Grande City Mayoral Debate for 2015. I'm excited to serve as your moderator for this event. In order to maintain and support our sense of democracy, it is important that we encourage the discussion of ideas and the acceptance of differing opinions. It is my hope that this debate will help us promote democracy and encourage the younger generation to participate actively in the election process. I would like to offer a disclaimer before I begin. I am not a resident of Rio Grande City, although I do have a few family members who are registered voters. In addition, I do not have any affiliation with either candidate, and I have not contributed to their campaigns. My role here is simply to guide an unbiased discussion of ideas. And I'd like to reiterate the rules of no heckling or outbursts. Audience members who engage in such activity will be ejected from the building. And I'd like to remind the candidates also that bad language and harassing language will not be tolerated from either one of them. Just so we can be clear on the rules for the debate. We've already flipped a coin, and Mr. Peña will give his opening remarks in a while. This will be followed by Mr. Villarreal's opening remarks. This will then be followed by a set of 10 questions. The first question will be assigned to Mr. Peña. Mr. Villarreal will then be given the same question. 2 minutes for Mr. Peña, 2 minutes for Mr. Villarreal, and then back to Mr. Peña for a 2-minute rebuttal. And we will switch question after question. At the end, the audience will have the opportunity to offer 3 questions, and I will end up choosing the individuals who will ask the questions. The opening and closing remarks will be 3 minutes. The candidates will have 2 minutes for answers and 2 minutes for rebuttal. Are the candidates ready?
Yes.
Were we gonna have a clock to watch?
We do not have a clock to watch. I will be keeping time with my phone, and I will simply let you know that you have 10 seconds left before the 3-minute mark and 2-minute mark. Okay? So we will begin with the opening remarks by Mr. Peña. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I want to set the tone for this debate, really talking about what would be my professional experience. A lot about my personal life. I kind of wear on Facebook. I wear it on Facebook, and so everybody here pretty much has Facebook, but not a lot of folks have LinkedIn, where I keep my professional background on. And so it kind of started in 2004 with my family. We started Angelitos Healthcare. It's now located down the street, and it was a really difficult business to jump into because it's highly regulated. There's a lot of rules that you have to go through with home health. And for me, it was a bit difficult because I had just come out of college, and I was teaching in La Rio Middle School at the time. So my parents, being, my dad being a high school grad and my mom being a middle school really graduate, they think that when you graduate from college, you can do anything. So they, they're impeccable marketers, wonderful with people. And so we start this business, and I tell you, we made every mistake in the book. I almost sank that thing. But in the very end, a business really, it's about reinventing yourself. It's about being efficient. It's about competition. And we got better at it. And today, Angelitos is, according to the Stark County Industrial Foundation, one of the largest employers in Stark County. Top 5, employ more people than Walmart. And so later on down the line, we started to invest in real estate. And if you've ever been to the Health Nut, or if you've ever worked out at Snap Fitness or what have you, you're familiar with our plaza, which is Central Palm Plaza. It's almost like our personal EDC. And so when we started that plaza, there was really nothing down that road. And we got to experience firsthand what it's like to be kind of the first part, we just put up a building and just see all these little things follow. And I had this passion for business at the time, which is why I jumped into my MBA. And I tell you, once I finished my MBA, I did it because I wanted to be a better business person. And I kind of realized I still had a void. I still had this passion to learn, which is why I pursued my law degree. And I didn't pursue my law degree because I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a better business person again. And so we go to law school, everything's good. I end up getting this wonderful opportunity, this chance to work with people from all over the world. And I'm talking about natural gas companies, pipeline companies, restaurants, construction companies from Canada, from France, from Colombia, from the Saudi Kingdom, from just everywhere. And that exposure, I think, is something that I've just kind of been blessed to have as a business consultant and also as an attorney, just kind of advising business owners from everywhere. And so when this opportunity opened up, I says, I think there's a lot of ideas that I can bring to the table from the private sector. You see, because the private sector, when you're talking about business, it's another beast. And so this is like a little piece of clay that you kind of get to mold. And hence I'm here today. That's why I'm running for mayor. And
10 seconds.
Hence my opening statement, asking for your vote and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now give 3 minutes to Mr. Villarreal. Go ahead.
I'm Joel Villarreal, and I was born and raised in McAllen, Texas. However, I chose to move to Rio Grande City, to live, to work, and to play, and to set roots in Rio Grande City. And here at this campus is where I met my wife, my beautiful wife, Monique Villarreal. And we have a lovely son, Juan Diego Villarreal. And my mother is here today. And my mother, I am forever grateful because of her tenacity and resolve to take 7 children out of poverty. And for that, I will ever be grateful. Love you, Mom. Love you, Juan Diego. Of course, love you, Monique. The reason I moved to Rio Grande City back in '99 was to open this campus, South Texas College. Together with Mr. Ruben Science and many other staff members, we opened this campus and we brought higher education to Rio Grande City and Stark County. And that I am very proud of. In fact, we have contributed to many careers being built here at STC. Experience, yes, public sector, 25 years of public service. Along with 25 years of public service, I'm pursuing a doctoral degree, 7,200 hours, with leadership studies, and the primary focus is in business and the private sector. Now, I have, since '99, contributed countless hours of community service to Rio Grande City. Rio Grande City JCs, Building Standards and Renewal Board, Planning and Zoning. So I have countless hours of community service. Now, I know I've been asked, I should say, that I am not from here, from Rio Grande City or homegrown. However, I will say to you, like many individuals that have come to Rio Grande City, brings to mind Dr. Mario E. Ramirez. He was a pioneer in health services, and in fact, he created the Stark County Hospital in Rio Grande City, and the man was from Roma. But he contributed significantly to Rio Grande City, and so have I. Mr. Ruben Science, who together with many members of this community built this campus, also the man was from San Isidro. Now many other individuals, Dr. Cajiri, Dr. Vasquez, Dr. Valencia, Dr. Mario A. Rodriguez, all of them have contributed significantly to Rio Grande City, but they were not homegrown in Rio Grande City. I want to say at this point, I may not have been homegrown in Rio Grande City, but I have certainly been homemade in Rio Grande City.
Thank you, Mr. Villalobos. We will now ask the first question to Mr. Peña. You will be given 2 minutes to answer the question, followed by 2 minutes to Mr. Villarreal, and then 2 minutes rebuttal for Mr. Peña. Mr. Peña, first question is, what steps would you take to lure businesses and employers to our municipality?
Rio Grande City is a gold mine. We're stuck in between two powerhouse growth economies. Multiple powerhouse growth economies. You're talking about McAllen. You're talking about Sheridan. Talking about La Jolla. And on the other side, you're talking about Laredo. And I think that I've brought investors here before, and we talk about Rio Grande City. And when you Google Rio Grande City, I don't have to tell you what you're going to find. Socioeconomic depression, all these other, but that's not what investors want to hear. What investors want to hear is that our economy, we have a cash economy similar to the cash economy that they have in McAllen. There's a study done in McAllen of all the folks that come up from Mexico and spend money in McAllen on retail. And I remember when I was bringing these folks in, I said, look, I can tell you that study doesn't account for how much money Rio Grande City loses from our people going and spending in McAllen. But at the same time, we're driving around, they're looking at the Chevy, they're looking at the Ford, and they're looking at all these other things, saying, you know what, this economy, there's something very different. And so one of the things that I would do is I would repackage everything. I tell investors what they want to hear based upon my experiences. I tell them about the neighboring powerhouse economy, our proximity to Monterrey, Mexico. I tell them about the western Mazatlan port. You know, it offers a shorter route to Corpus Christi, which by the way now has LNG, natural gas export. Some projects that I've actually gotten to touch. Might be the case that some of the natural gas fields in northern Mexico might want to someday export out through Corpus Christi. It's a matter of planting a seed. So it's a matter of telling investors what they need to hear. I'm tired of hearing about Rio Grande City always being a bad city or a place that we can't invest in. I can tell you something. We got property at a good price, and we got people here who are willing to work for a good wage.
10 seconds.
And I think that's important, particularly for businesses and startups. So repackage it and sell it.
Thank you, Mr. Peña. I will now repeat the question for Mr. Villarreal. What steps would you take to lure businesses and employers to our municipality?
Well, economic development encompasses many aspects, some of which are infrastructure needs, certainly the public utilities, law enforcement, fire protection, social well-being, humanitarian needs. And economic development also is about creating jobs. And creating jobs is not only maintaining or bringing new business to Rio Grande City, but sustaining the businesses that we have here. We have many existing businesses that are also struggling. But what is it that we can do to help them as well? Is balancing the needs of the entire community. We have very good medical community as well. And as Mr. Peña mentioned, is marketing Rio Grande City. We have the financial stability in Rio Grande City. In fact, Standard & Poor rates Rio Grande City an A for stability. That is crucial when you're trying to bring investments to Rio Grande City. Also, family-oriented. We have the infrastructure now to support the businesses that Mr. Peña mentioned. The development, commercial, residential, we have the stability, we have the infrastructure to support such projects. And that has been through the hard work and dedication of many individuals. Also, the stability, as I mentioned, bringing back many opportunities for individuals and the educational needs. We have good schools here in Rio Grande City. We have good schools, we have medical community. We certainly have businesses. And one of the things that I would do is also talk to business experts, have the conversations. We have a lot of business owners that are well-to-do, and they can certainly contribute to.
Thank you, Mr. Villarreal. I will now give 2 minutes to Mr. Peña for rebuttal.
Thank you. And you're right. I think that business does require, a very, very diverse understanding. And so that brings me to another point. I think that it's really important. We've had, obviously, the infrastructure, but Texas has been growing phenomenally. I've seen that money come in. I've seen it come into Houston. I've seen it come into the Rio Grande Valley. Now, I mentioned the growth rates for McAllen. I mentioned the growth rates for Laredo, but for some reason, we've lagged proportionally, right? When you ask somebody, how well is something doing? Or what do you think about this? It's always relative, right? If anybody takes college algebra and type of math, remember you got X and Y. You got to compare two things. How have we been doing compared to what? And in our situations, how have we been doing compared to our neighbors? And so it's really, really important now. I don't think, even having infrastructure, I don't think we've kept up with the same growth rate. And so compared to what? Compared to our neighbors, I think we can do a lot better. But it's really important to bring some diversity to the table. And that brings me to another point, is I would diversify the EDC. I think we've got a lot of folks sitting in there, a lot of them who have experience in the school district. We've got some good folks sitting there, but we don't have a diversity of business exposure. And I think that severely limits us. So while we might have had the infrastructure, we certainly haven't had the growth rate. And I think that if we had other folks lending more perspective, maybe about natural gas, maybe somebody who started and was successful in a restaurant, never had any college experience, but managed to grow it. Maybe somebody who's owned a couple of nightclubs. Maybe somebody who's been in healthcare. Maybe somebody else who's. You need folks to bring different types of ideas to the table. And I think that is a fatal flaw on our end. I don't think that we've opened up to the community as much as we should have. Folks, we don't even have a chamber of commerce. And so yet, we are in a period where we could take advantage of growth.
Thank you, Mr. Peña. The next question goes now to Mr. Villarreal. You will be given 2 minutes. Question is, if elected, what city agencies and departments would you focus on to improve the meaningful use of tax dollars and services to the public? In addition, what would you support? Where should waste be cut? And what parts of the process need more accountability?
Part of my platform is to evaluate and assess, and it's a comprehensive needs assessment, which is evaluating all the departments, down from public utilities to police department, fire department, and human resources, certainly the municipal court, and all the departments in the city. Based on that comprehensive needs assessment, then at that point I would make decisions, informed decisions. The last thing I want to do is make any ill-conceived decisions because I didn't do the evaluation and assessment. Now, some of the departments that do need some help, we have, for example, police protection, and I believe we should have more police officers out there because we are going to keep growing. And fire and safety needs are essential. Certainly the fire department as well. We need to accommodate the growth that will occur. We are at a point in time where Rio Grande City will explode, and we will have that growth and continued growth, business, medical, educational, all that it takes. And in fact, for example, STC is going to be building very soon, accommodating educational needs, bringing a nursing department, or actually a nursing building to this campus, and many other needs. Now, as far as departments, those are two. Definitely infrastructure needs. We still need infrastructure. There are some areas that we need to provide sewage to. Lift stations that need fixing as well, because they've been in existence for 40 years. Those are some of the needs that we need to definitely focus on, because it's going to bring and satisfy a lot of the employment opportunities or future employment opportunities as well.
Thank you, Mr. Peña. I will repeat the question for Mr. Peña. If elected, what city agencies and departments would you focus on to improve the meaningful use of tax dollars and services to the public? What would you support? Where should waste be cut? And what parts of the process need more accountability?
I think the first thing that you got to focus on is what exactly is that Rio Grande City needs. I mean, if you're talking about limited resources, then I'm assuming that you're saying, well, we've only got, of course, so much money to put in, and we really got to kind of cut back on a couple of things here and there. But for limited resources, if I really had to narrow in on one thing, I can tell you, Rio Grande City, we're not landlocked. It's a beautiful thing. And I agree, of course, with my fellow candidate, the police and fire, very, very important, particularly because our population is horribly underestimated. And so I think that they miss out on quite a bit. I think they've got just a really burdened workload. So information is important. Hence, maybe the need for commissions and, Keith mentions needs assessment. The problem is that when you get into assessments and talking and what have you, I think that it sacrifices a little bit when it comes to efficiency, and it also adds a little bit more bureaucracy to the issue. And in my opinion, I think that what we need to really focus on right now, because of the way that the Texas economy is moving, we really got to entice some business in here, manufacturing, industry. And so we're not landlocked on the east or the west. We've got some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful potential to expand. And I can tell you, one fatal error, for example, that I think that we made was you got two types of sewer lines, okay? You've got one that's kind of like a pressurized sewer line, and one that uses gravity to kind of run all that stuff into one particular direction. And I know that when we built the new high school, instead of actually expanding the sewer lines into like a gravity system down 755, we chose to use a high pressure system that went through Las Lomas. And I think that there was a lot of growth potential, there still is, down 755. And that's not something that made sense to me. I don't know why we didn't expand down 755. And that's another direction that we could have grown in. But I certainly think that we need to market the east and west side, a lot of development potential.
Thank you, Mr. Peña. Mr. Mayoral, you have 2 minutes for rebuttal.
As we continue to expand, going back to a needs assessment, that is essential. It is essential because that is the only way to truly find out where the needs are in our community, in the departments. Yes, there are some areas that need correction, but unless we have the data, unless we have specific information to make an informed decision, then we really have not done our homework. There is potential to expand, there's potential to grow. And we are in that moment in time where Rio Grande City will be the next big city. But we are going to need individuals like yourself to make that happen. And as Mr. Peña mentions, there is a lot of promise. And I agree, and in fact, that's part of my platform. Because I believe in Rio Grande City, but we need to continue to build partnerships with the surrounding communities, the county folks, because we are Stark County. Rio Grande City, what happens to our neighbors to the east, what happens to our neighbors to the west, have ripple effects in Rio Grande City. We are not an island in and of ourselves. And in fact, there is interactive relationships. We have a lot of people from Roma, for example, that work here in Rio Grande City and vice versa. And we need to welcome those individuals along with the businesses as well. I believe in the concept of shopping Rio first and providing services here in Rio Grande City. And in fact, we need to take the lead in the city to make sure that any services and products that we need to provide, that we purchase them here. And I want to sit down with other mayors here in Starr County to do the same, where we can come back and shop Starr County. There's only way that one voice we can have.
Thank you, Mr. Villarreal. The next question goes now to Mr. Peña. Question is, list 3 specific concrete things you would do in the first 3 months if you are elected.
Number 1, diversify the EDC. Number 2, put a chamber of commerce in place. Number 3, get rid of some of the contracts that the cities have been having to deal with that kind of, how can I say it, that resemble some of the issues that we've been having to deal with over the past 10 to 15 years between folks what we call an oligarchy. It's when a group of people kind of control pretty much everything. And I think that that's really important because there's a lot of trust that needs to be put back in place. And if I could summarize it this way, you have a situation where you have the school board. Okay, let's take a snapshot within those things. Then you have the city. Then you got the gentleman running the school board in the city, being brothers, of course, former mayor, whatnot. And then you start adding folks in there, like Mr. Leo Lopez, gentleman. But in either case, we have the EDC that controls the money on the bottom, which has all of the same folks that were sitting on the city commission, who are, by the way, school employees, and then they introduce more school employees into the EDC. Then we introduced Mr. Lopez's brother, Fred Lopez, also into the EDC. And so I think that I would certainly diversify the EDC, get a chamber going, and get rid of some of the contracts that resemble some of the shenanigans that I think that really prompted me to run, that really gave me a reason to want to run into this race. And I don't need the rest of my 2 minutes.
Thank you. The same question goes to Mr. Villarreal. Let me repeat the question. List 3 specific concrete things you would do in the first 3 months if you are elected.
Deja vu once again, ladies and gentlemen. You're not running for school board. It is unfortunate that we have this type of political factions. And it is sad. It is sad. Because that is absolutely not true and unacceptable. Transparency, accountability, fair hiring practices, removing people from the EDC. That to me is just hypocrisy at its finest. Now, what would I work on? Absolutely, I want to see a city hall here in Rio Grande City without investing taxpayer, without having to spend any more taxes or building or having to raise any more taxes. We do need a city hall. We need to be planning for the next 50 years. Just like we did here at STC, where we planned for 50 years, now STC can build and expand because of the planning that we had in place. Same thing at the city. We need to continue to plan. Now, there are many good folks in EDC, and in fact, some of them have business backgrounds. Now, definitely there could be individuals and be considered, but to come in and bring in within the first 3 months, having to make all these changes, because change is not always good, ladies and gentlemen. It is not always good. It is not best for the community. Now, I can say right now that what I would do is City Hall, absolutely.
10 seconds.
And I would, going back to the comprehensive needs assessment, that is what I would do. And I would ask the people, have town hall meetings, find out what the people want, what the people need.
Thank you, Mr. Villarreal. We will now give Mr. Peña 2 minutes for a vote.
I've heard there's some wonderful people working in City Hall. And I can tell you I never said that I'd remove people from City Hall, because the truth of the matter is a lot of people that I said we'd remove the things that really didn't make sense as to why they ended up there in the first place. But when you have a city commission that's basically dominated by school employees. And then you have an EDC that's basically dominated by school employees. I can tell you there's enough people in Rio Grande City with different kinds of backgrounds, business backgrounds, education backgrounds, all kinds of folks. We don't have to have the same folks sitting on everything. It doesn't make sense to me. Now, I can tell you, I agree, change is not always good. But after 10, 15 years of the same, sometimes you need it. And I can tell you that when it comes to business, I am one that I don't hold a grudge. Folks, we've made enemies when we first started. I mean, when you don't quite understand business that well, it's really easy to throw a punch. But as you tend to grow, you start to figure out that it's about being diplomatic. You don't have to like people to actually work with them. We have many employees, and I guarantee you there's a lot of them that probably don't like each other. But everybody has a common interest. Everybody has food in their belly. You know, it's not that complicated, folks, what I'm asking for. I just want to break things up and bring in some folks who would like to participate. There's a lot of folks in this room who would like. I would have jumped onto the EDC in a second if I was asked to. I would have loved it. Are you kidding? I love the business. Was there ever a call to action? No. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. The next question goes to Mr. Villarreal. Question is, what would you consider when applications for municipal judge come as soon as a contract the city has with a current contracted judge, and would you require him or her to have a degree in criminal justice or any law experience?
Again, I would look at a comprehensive needs assessment of every department, including the municipal court, because I believe in looking at a situation from multiple angles, making an assessment, evaluation, and then deciding. They definitely would look at what are the qualifications, compare them, and find out what other municipalities are doing as well. Do we need, some of the smartest people that I've ever met have been ranch hands. So do they need a college degree? That's something I could certainly consider. A municipal judge is about having common sense as well, working with people, evaluating the situation, and make the resources available to individuals to pay their fines. So yes, I will consider all the qualifications. I would look at the situation, evaluate it, assess it, and then make a decision. It is simply visiting with people. I would sit down with the current judge, talk to him, find out what the needs are in the municipal court, just like I would with every other department. Find out what the needs are. Why are things not being run efficiently if they are not? Get data. I'm a data-driven individual. I want to see black and white before I commit to a decision, because I take every decision personally, especially when it affects people's lives. And I would do the same with any individual, any department, and any staff member that works for City Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Villarreal. The same question goes to Mr. Peña. Let me repeat the question. What would you consider when applications for municipal judge come as soon as the contract that the city has with a current contracted judge expires? And would you require him or her to have a degree in criminal justice or any law experience?
Definitely no requirement for criminal justice. I mean, I agree with Mr. Villarreal. You know, there's a lot of folks who are extremely intelligent that don't need college degrees. But it's really simple. It's really simple. You know what I do? I'd advertise the position. That's it. I tell you, it's a matter. Look at the difference. You got business. It's a matter of transparency, and it's also a matter of efficiency. It's not hard to just ask people to just apply. Hey, we got a position on board. You're going to have attorneys for it. You don't have to require it. I know there's attorneys who would take that job in a second, because you know what, folks? Attorneys sometimes, they have hard times too. Just advertise it and see who applies and make your decision. But it's about making it available for people. That's it. It's not hard.
Thank you. I will now give Mr. Villarreal 2 minutes for rebuttal.
I agree, it is not hard. But sometimes people make it hard. People are the ones that make it hard. And if there's any indication of many previous experiences, very logical, just advertise. But how many times have you been promised that and not delivered? I agree, okay, so you advertise, but that's part of the plan. As I mentioned, going back to a comprehensive needs assessment, you find out what the needs are, what are the requirements, and who can fill that position. And yes, you go out and you advertise. But one thing is saying it, another thing is doing it. It's very easy to say, especially when you don't have any experience at municipal experience whatsoever. Going back to the simple statement of advertising, what a simple statement. But yet, in many instances, it is not followed through. The question is, are we going to follow through with what we say here today? I can tell you one thing, I have followed through on many of the things that I've done at City Hall, or with City Hall. The question is, will my opponent follow suit in what he says, especially when you have other individuals that might be having an influence?
10 seconds.
Thank you.
The next question goes to Mr. Peña. Question is, if elected, what city agencies and departments would you focus on to improve the meaningful use of tax dollars and services to the public? Second part of that question is, what would you support? Where should waste be cut? And what parts of the process need more accountability?
Give me a multi-part question, why don't you?
Definitely.
I'll tell you, I have to revisit the discussion about the focus on the EDC. Again, diversity, call it business acumen. Right? Different people bringing things to the table is important because, you know, in the very end, if you get the right people to sit on these commissions, people are willing to help, and like I said, there's a lot of them. You'd be surprised how much of that work actually gets done for you. You see, part of being a leader is actually finding the right people to fit into an organization. In the very end, you don't have to do everything. In the very end, there's people who are willing to really, really contribute. So another really department or commission, right, I would focus on would be the Chamber of Commerce, to really lend some perspective and lobby on behalf of businesses. And then another one, how about we try an ethics commission? That wouldn't hurt. Maybe something to really look into some of the decisions that we're making as a city, to look at some of the contracts and see how some of our money is spent. Because, you know, I think that this question keeps coming up because we're stewards of other people's money. And this isn't one of those areas where a lot of people have money to pay on things like property taxes and whatnot. People are really, really busy trying to put food in their bellies. And so I think that certainly an ethics commission, certainly a Chamber of Commerce, and certainly a diversified EDC. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Villarreal, same question, let me repeat it. If elected, what city agencies and departments would you focus on to improve the meaningful use of tax dollars and services to the public? Second part is, what would you support? Where should waste be cut? And what parts of the process need more accountability?
I would look at collection. In fact, I would like to bring in a collections department. I think we pay too much money to attorneys for collecting taxes, collecting delinquent taxes. At some point, we would benefit by having a tax assessor and have a department pay, let's say $30,000, $40,000, because right now we're paying a lot more than that for collections. I would say definitely, but again, I would first assess the situation and say, do we need a collections department? By the most part, I think we would. However, staying true to my platform, I would proceed with the comprehensive assessment and see if we do need one. Other departments I would focus on is definitely bring in business, as Mr. Peña mentioned, certainly have a take with the Chamber of Commerce, but there are other organizations as well that contribute to the progress of Rio Grande City. And the point is, when it comes to asking people, it goes back to a simple, why do you have to be asked? Go up there, get to the plate. You yourself get up there and say, look, I want to serve. Why do somebody have to be looking for you to serve in community service? No. Going back to borrow what Kennedy said, that's not what your city can do for you, but what can you do for your city? Yes, okay, so I have to be called. No. Get up there. Go to the city hall and say, look, I want to volunteer. I have experience in this and I have experience in that. I guarantee you the city would use you. So again, I leave you with that message. Get out there and serve your community. Don't wait to be asked. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Peña, you have 2 minutes to rebut.
I like Star Trek. And one of the things that made was it Captain Kirk really, really popular, or really, really a good leader, is not that he knew how to do anything. It's that he knew how to put a crew together, and he knew how to trust people to get things done. And in the very end, he worked by his intuition, and things got done. In our situation, it's very similar. I agree with Mr. Villarreal. It's about finding the right people and really asking them what they can do for their city. But you see, that goes contrary to where we're at right now, because we've had the same people working in there over and over. And I use that funny little word called oligarchy. It's when a group of people, a clique, really get to the point where they try or end up controlling everything. And the reason, and I can tell you from a business perspective, a professional, qualified opinion, whenever I do my due diligence assessments on other businesses, because people ask me to look into businesses and to tell them, is it a good investment, I always look at the environment, and I look for things like oligarchies. Why? Because they're risks. Those are red flags for me, because they breed inefficiency. Inefficiency. How exactly, for example, in a municipal court, are you going to raise revenues if you got somebody sitting there who's really not going to aggressively pursue tickets? Same thing with maybe even tax collections. You can't just go in and pick some people that you're going to collect on. You got to apply it the same, or just not do it at all. And hence we go back to the same point. We just need, and I agree, more people. Thank you.
Thank you. After that multi-part question, a very simple question. Mr. Villarreal, what is the most pressing issue for Rio Grande City?
Economic development. Economic development, which, as I mentioned before, is a multifaceted, going back to the infrastructure needs, going back to businesses, creating businesses, keeping new business, holding on to the previous businesses, because again, you don't want to create a new business and lose two. No. Police and fire protection, absolutely. Humanitarian needs. In fact, was it not last year that we had a humanitarian crisis? And how did we function? Did we have any of the support services to provide aid to those individuals? And who knows, down the road it might continue. Are we ready for that? So again, creating jobs is certainly something that we need to focus on. But that is a partnership. We need to partner up with institutions like South Texas College and other educational, UT, RGV, certainly businesses as well, the medical community. We have medical needs, for example. Sometimes individuals have to go to McAllen to provide basic care. I would sit down with the medical community and say, how can the city help you? How can we bring business? How can we sit down with the medical community and say, okay, what can we do to help you to bring specialized medicine? But again, it's sitting down with those individuals, the medical community, the experts. And I am one to sit down with experts. I will sit down and come to the table and bring in individuals with different experiences,
10 seconds.
different expertise. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. Other people have knowledge and they're willing to share that knowledge freely.
Thank you, Mr. Villarreal. Same question to Mr. Peña. What is the most pressing issue for Rio Grande City?
I'm going to forewarn everybody. Of course, there's a lot of answers to this question. A lot of answers to this question. But speaking in terms of economic development, and let's just go into, let's try a little preserving history. I'm going to forewarn you that this loop that we're developing right now, and there's an expression that says, be careful what you ask for because you might get what you want. Downtown historical, everybody I think has always some kind of perceived downtown becoming somewhat like rude. And I used to tell my wife, I said, you know, that's a difficult vision to achieve because we got such a high traffic rate. And so what's happening is now this loop is being developed, and we're finally going to get what we want. Traffic is going to take an alternate route pretty soon. So this, right now, this time, is a very important time because you need to focus on the historical development of downtown because this loop could either make or break the downtown area. This is a very crucial time. You don't want that loop going through and diverting traffic without a plan. Now, I had to bring that up because that loop is a huge development, but I see that loop every day, and I see the retail that could potentially come in, and I'm going to tell you, that's going to kill the downtown area if you don't do something now. So certainly a historical commission, which I'm going to borrow from my fellow candidate here, to lend some profession and some insight into maybe some ideas to bring to the table to get the historical district going.
Thank you. Mr. Villarreal, you now have 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Mr. Peña seems to overvalue some of the credentials regarding business. His business complex, the last 3 years, the majority of office space has been empty. I would want to go in and sit down with Mr. Peña and other businesses and help them out. Businesses need help. Are we willing to provide that help? And I am. And that goes for any business here in Rio Grande City. Any business. Older, existing businesses, and new businesses. Let's go. Talk to the individuals. See what the needs are. Have those town hall meetings and find out what it is that Rio Grande City needs and wants. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Villarreal. We still have a few questions. Debates are tough. I don't mind. I want to thank everyone here for their civility and professionalism and both candidates. The next question goes to Mr. Peña. Question is, what is your vision for our flood problem in our neighborhoods?
I think that if you look with it, and he brought up, Mr. Vela brought up an interesting topic, is we are in a potential disaster area. And I can tell you that I do have some experience working with disaster preparedness. I authored a home health disaster preparedness plan back when I had a home health consulting firm, and it was actually a very successful plan. It was so successful that it got copied throughout the Rio Grande Valley, and I can almost guarantee you, if you work in a home health agency, you're probably using a copy of my plan. But I can tell you that for me, as far as flooding goes, I mean, this is a bit of a difficult area because it does take a lot of focus on really what would be investment in our infrastructure, and it's a really, really difficult topic to touch because that takes tax money. And I know that we are, again, in a point where we have a lot of limited resources, but right now, I can tell you we're wasting time in this debate by not going out and looking at where those areas are. And I think it's really important to bring people from all different kinds of little communities to the table, almost like neighborhood captains, to let us know. Because in the very end, we failed ourselves. I mean, I gotta admit, commission's a small group of people. It's difficult to send everybody out and feed information, but hence the reason why you get communities involved, and you really need to pinpoint where your difficult borrowing and needs assessment. You need to really pinpoint where your difficult areas are.
Thank you. Same question goes to Mr. Villarreal. The question is, what is your vision for our flood problem in our neighborhoods?
There are certainly some neighborhoods that are flood prone. And the reason some of those neighborhoods are flood prone is because some of those existed prior to planning and zoning. One of the crucial elements that we do at planning and zoning is we bring a development or a residential or commercial, and we study it. We have engineers that study it, and they'll have a drainage plan, for example, and to make sure that that development does not get flooded. However, some of the neighborhoods are going to need some help. There are several, and those, to be frank with you, at the time before Rio Grande City was incorporated, it was a no man's land. People would just develop without plans, without drainage plans, without any conception of what the needs and bounds were. And that is something that needs to be corrected, yes, but it's going to take money and planning. It's going to take money. And sitting down with those folks as well, and those developments, and study the watershed. Where's the water coming from to that development? It's not just within the neighborhood, but where is the water coming from? That needs to be studied and then corrected, and it might not be at the point of that development. Could be 5 miles away. But that does take money. And that is something that we need to bring, because these neighborhoods do need help. But we must study.
Thank you. Mr. Peña, you have 2 minutes for a vote.
I'm going to tell you that politics is really the bane of this issue. I had mentioned something about really bureaucracy at first, but in this situation, I mean, it's difficult, I think, for people who are really, really focused on maintaining a position in politics. It's difficult for them to really look over the hill. Everybody wants to get something that's done right now, right now, right now, right now. It's easy to build a park. It's easy to throw an event. It's easy to have a cook-up. It's easy to, but at the very end, I think that, again, agreeing with my fellow candidate, you got to expend those funds wisely. So I think that it really comes down to putting some people in place who can really, really think long-term rather than right now. And so you can see the difficulty there when you're asking somebody who's looking to win the next race, to really look past that race. Everybody wants to give somebody something now. And I can tell you, I do agree with my fellow candidate. I mean, the issues that we have in Rio Grande City as far as the flooding and whatnot, they're very, very complex. So certainly, that's the time. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question goes to Mr. Villarreal first. Question is two-part. Rio Grande City does not have a permanent city manager at this time. Number one, what qualifications do you feel a city manager should have? And number two, will you push to have a permanent city manager hired?
Yes. Yes, I would push for a city manager. However, looking at the city charter, that's one thing. The city charter, as for the position of city manager, has several qualifications that I would really want to look at. One is you must have 5 years of municipal experience, and two, you must have a bachelor's degree. Right now, Bill Gates could not apply to be a city manager at Rio Grande City. because he doesn't have the 5 years of municipal experience. Neither does Richard Branson or Steve Jobs. May he rest in peace. Why? Because they don't have the 5 years of municipal experience. So that's one thing that I would look at. Is it something that we can expand the pool of qualified city managers? And as I mentioned prior, there are many individuals that have years of experience and municipal experience that we can certainly consider and throw in the talent pool. But, of course, I would ask the citizens, is that something that the citizens would like to consider? Because there are many qualified individuals that are not going to get an opportunity. Because they might not, again, they do not have either 5 years of municipal experience or they don't have a bachelor's degree. Now, I'm sure you know of folks that might not have a bachelor's degree but are very good at what they do. So, by and large, yes, I will. And another thing about the city manager, by the way, I can guarantee you that whoever the city manager is will not have any familial ties to me. None whatsoever. Not my brother-in-law, not my sister-in-law, not my brother or sister. No,
10 seconds.
no cousins, no relatives whatsoever. None. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pena, same question. The question is in 2 parts. Rio Grande City does not have a permanent city manager at this time. Question number 1. What qualifications do you feel a city manager should have? And 2, will you push to have a permanent city manager hired?
I would certainly push to have a permanent city manager hired, and of course I adopt what my fellow candidate says as far as the qualifications go, and I understand they can be awfully difficult to fulfill for some folks, but it goes back to, again, advertising the position. I think I can tell you something. There's been a lot of monster.com. There's, my question is, why has it not been advertised at this point? I've seen the salary for city managers. Sometimes, I think about applying. Of course, I'm probably not qualified, but I tell you, I would love to bring Matt back. I think that man had. Look, I'm not just throwing his name out there. I've had conversations with Matt, and I can tell you that Matt spoke extremely well of some of the folks that are working with the city right now. He said, you've got some folks, and I'm not talking about city commission, I'm talking about, you rendered no opinion. He said nothing about that, but he was talking about some of the staff. He says there's staff there who really have some awesome potential. And there was things that he told me that I said, Matt, you're giving me a perspective on the public side that I've never even considered. So I can tell you, you've already had the opportunity to hire a wonderful city manager. I've gauged Matt, I've talked to Matt. I hire a lot of people. It's a lot of interviews. At one point I did every single interview that we had for our agency. And I can tell you, I've never had such a wonderful conversation as I did with Matt. So I certainly feel like we do need a city manager. I think that, currently the way that the city is working, it's the way that I would perceive it is that it's a matter of putting out a lot of fires. And I think that what happens is you need somebody to really look at the bigger picture, somebody who has that experience, and somebody who can really share and direct a lot of people to really run this city. And that's my opinion.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Villarreal, you have 2 minutes for rebuttal.
It is true. I do not qualify to be the city manager, and neither is Mr. Pena. And many individuals in here are not qualified to be a city manager in Rio Grande City. Now, I see an issue with that. And yes, it would be advertised across the state, across the U.S. But nonetheless, it comes back to the simple fact that we need to revisit those qualifications. Now, are we willing to? I am. And of course, I would have to get the support of the city commissioners on that, and of course, ask the folks. Do you believe that we should or should not? Because the city charter, it is. We are here as future mayor, either myself or Mr. Pena. We're there to enforce the city charter, to protect it, to enforce it, to comply with it. And there are some stipulations on that charter that we can certainly go back and revisit. It's simple advertisement, yes. but also look at what's working for us and what is not working for us. And if it needs to be fixed, then let's fix it. Point blank. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question goes to Mr. Peña first. Question is, the office of City Municipal Judge is a hot topic in this election. Do you feel that problems exist, and how would you address them?
It's certainly a hot topic, and I can tell you, I really hate to make this a personal topic. Anybody who knows me well, that when it comes to just with the background, with the stuff that we've been through, really in the private sector, I mean, you learn to really not hold grudges against people. You know, I work with people that I don't like all the time. Of course, they don't know that. Look, folks, there's a reason why China works with the U.S. You know, there's a common economic interest. I can tell you. So let's set the personal thing to the side. I mentioned something earlier about how that position, you know, the way that it's filled right now, it just symbolizes something that just, again, that funny word, the oligarchy. It's a symbol of everything that we've kind of been putting up with over the past 10 to 15 years. There's really no reason, or I can't, maybe there's information, but I don't know. I mean, maybe it was advertised. Maybe Mr. Lopez was the best person to fill the position. I'm not quite sure, but in the very end, I hate to say, it's really not about Mr. Lopez. It's about the fact that that position resulted the way that it did. Given, and then considering so many people in the city that were qualified enough to fill it, and who would have filled it in a second. So it's a hot topic mostly because it resembles something that we're trying to kind of set aside. Rio Grande City's big enough now to bring more folks in, to bring more folks to kind of work together and be diplomatic and really, really, really lend some new ideas. And also to be fair to everybody else when it comes to spending all of our tax dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Villarreal, same question. Let me repeat the question. The office of City Municipal Judge is a hot topic in this election. Do you feel that problems exist, and how would you address them?
Yes, there is a problem. We're looking at, from what I understand, several thousand cases that need to be looked at. However, going back to continuing with the needs assessment is finding out what the issue is. As simple as going in there, talking to the individuals there. We don't know. I cannot say right now what is wrong with that department. I cannot. But I am willing to look at it, do a comprehensive assessment, evaluate it, and then make a decision. At this point, it's a fine-only court. So if you find somebody $40, what, are you going to put them in jail and it's going to cost you $36 to have them in jail? No, it wouldn't make economic sense. Absolutely not. So what is the problem? Let's go and find out and assess it, evaluate it, and make an informed decision about it. Yes, there's a lot of rumor. There's rumors out there. We cannot be operating on rumors, on conjecture, innuendos. We cannot. Let's find out what the truth is and then correct it. Very simple. Because we do not know, anybody here does not know exactly what is contributing to the issues at municipal court. But I'm willing to sit down with the people that know and find out. Very simple. And be willing to make a decision based on the information. Again, let's look at data. Are these cases new cases? Are these cases old cases that have been in the book since the existence? Since we incorporated? How long have these cases been? We have no clue. Some of these cases might have been as old as 2003, but still in the books. But we don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Villarreal. Mr. Peña, you've got 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Plain and simply put, I mean, I just go in there and talk to Mr. Lopez and say, sir, please resign. Please resign. Let us open up the position and see if there's anybody who has any experience doing this or anybody who'd like to take the position. And hopefully, you know, if that wasn't the case, then, you know, and you know, just kind of looking at this whole thing, I tell you, it's you don't have to get so complicated. The difference between public and private sector in the private sector, it's not hard, folks. If it makes sense, you know, that something turned out a certain way, because if there's smoke, there's fire. If there's smoke, there's fire. And in this situation, it's just, you know, it resulted from a handful of people just trying to, if you want to give somebody a job, you start a business and you give them a job. Because in the very end, no one's going to tell you what to do with your business. But when you're doing it with my money, I have a problem with it. Thank you.
The next question goes to Mr. Villarreal. This is the 10th question. Mr. Villarreal, what distinguishes you from the other candidate?
I have 25 years of public service experience, 16 of which have been here in Rio Grande City. I have been trained as well with the doctoral program, 72 hours, interdisciplinary studies, leadership and business. However, I've chosen to serve public. And the mayor position, guess what? It's a public servant. It's a public servant. That's what we are, public servants. Community service experience, countless hours. But I've not done it for any other reason but to help my community. To help our community grow and prosper. That is what I've done. I have not set foot at City Hall for the first time because I decided to run for mayor. Absolutely not. I've been there many a times before. Many a times before. What, now I want to be mayor? Now I'm going to want to get in these committees? No. Public service comes from the heart. And I've been there before. And I didn't have to be asked to serve publicly. No. I went up there and said, I want to serve. I've never been asked. I go out there and I ask myself, what can I do for my city? Now, other experiences, obviously here, South Texas College, created many careers. I can tell you stories of many individuals who I helped graduate. And now are professionals out in the community. From police officers to social workers, educators. That is what I'm proud of. Serving the needs of others. And make no mistake, that is what the mayor position is.
Thank you, Mr. Villarreal. Mr. Peña. Mr. Peña, what distinguishes you from the other candidate?
I'm certainly not taking this position because it pays well. So I just don't really understand where we're going with saying I was asked to run. That's awkward to me. But look, take a step back. What's different between the two of us? If you could put us in a picture frame, it's easy for you because you're sitting back there. Put us in a picture frame. And in the very end, here's the crux of the matter. I saw an opportunity for Rio Grande City. And it just so happened to correlate with what I do for a living. And that's bring money in, investment. I see that Rio Grande City needs to catch a wave of investment that I feel it's been missing. And I think people need to hear about us. They need to know that we've got one of the highest grossing stripes in the valley. They need to know that sometimes our gas prices are similar to those in Houston. They need to know things like this. And so to me, it was a bit of an opportunity, or a big opportunity, to be able to lend something that I've been learning to give back. I grew up here, got family here. I want to get something done before my grandfather leaves this earth. Is that okay? Can I want to lend something that I've got, something that I know about? Because I feel our city needs it. In the very end, you look at this picture frame, and the big difference is that we've got somebody in the private sector, very strong in the private sector, and you've got someone in the public sector. In the very end, which one lends more value to the system we've got now? There's a lot of folks who hold the same qualifications that my fellow candidate does. There's not a lot of folks sitting on your city commission who can do what I do. Thank you.
Mr. Villarreal, you have 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Again, overvaluing the credentials. Overvalued. It is true. The man actually know from passing his bar. Now, going back to business, I know for a fact that his own business complex for many years has struggled to keep his own tenants. Struggling. Now, he talks about big business and talks about all this investment, but he cannot keep his own tenants. What is he going to do for the tenants of Rio Grande City? And that is, many of them, again, going back to those offices, they remain vacant. Now, I'm willing to help them. I am willing to go there and help them out. That I'm willing to do for everyone. Everyone. It's like the other day, for example, I went to go eat at a restaurant downtown, or actually here in town, and the restaurant had the signs of Mr. Peña. But I went and I ate there because it does not matter that that business owner is supporting Mr. Peña, because I'm still willing to go and eat in any restaurant or business, whether they're with me or against me. It's okay. Because as a mayor, we are here for all residents of Rio Grande City, whether they agree with our opinions or not. We are here for everyone. Thank you.
We will now go to audience questions. If you have a question for the candidates, please raise your hand and I will call on the first hand that goes up. Is the gentleman to the front. And the first question will go first towards Mr. Peña. Then we will give Mr. Villarreal 2 more minutes, and Mr. Peña 2 minutes for rebuttal. Your question.
Good afternoon, first of all. Congratulations on both of you for running, and the best of luck.
Thank you.
Now, the question is, how many term limits should an RGC mayor have? Now, if the community decides for it to be 8 years, what if in the end of 2 terms, you decide that the community, it's in the best interest that you run for a 3rd term?
2 minutes.
I don't need two minutes on this question. It's very simple. In business, if you can't get it done, and usually we call it, for us, it's kind of like the short term, it's 5 years. Can't get it done in 1 term, then you really shouldn't be there. And that's my personal goal as well. If I was elected to this position, I certainly guarantee you that if I don't get done what I want to get done, and in this situation, let's assume it's 5 years, then I won't run again. Because I have why should I be there? If I can't accomplish what I have to accomplish, why should I be there? So if you ask me, I think 1 term is enough. But then that's just being hard business.
Thank you. Mr. Villarreal, you've got 2 minutes.
I too, my personality, my character, if I don't get the job done, I don't have to wait for somebody to tell me to get out. Absolutely not. I would do that myself. Because I do believe that we are there and entrusted by the taxpayers, by the residents, to do a job. And if I'm not cutting it, then I should not be there. Now, to answer your question about term limits, that's been debated in Congress for some time already. And experts go either way on that one. Some say, yes, there should be term limits. But then you might have inexperienced politicians that have no clue, especially when they have not served in any committees to prepare them for politics. Now, they might have experience in other areas, but not in the committees and the organizations at the city level or municipal. No. And if you start getting inexperienced politicians, then guess what? It's a learning curve. It's going to be a learning curve by the time they truly understand what in this case, what the city is about. I would say 2, 3 terms max. Let's say 4-year terms. Let's say the first one, it might be, again, the learning curve. Unless, or maybe that would be a prerequisite before you apply for a position of mayor, maybe you should serve in some committee or commission. That might be a possibility too. Why not? Instead of having inexperienced individuals coming in and wanting to obviously influence, but not have the experience to do so. Because it is true, I agree with Mr. Peña, there's a distinction between the private sector and the public sector. There is a difference, a clear difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Peña, you've got 2 minutes for rebuttal.
I think that if we required experience to fill a public servitude position, you disqualify pretty much 90% of the people in this room. Especially when for the past 10 to 15 years, we've had the same folks cycling through this government. Nobody here has any kind of experience, so nobody here would be able to lend any kind of credentials to the city. I mean, you disqualify everybody. I mean, there's folks who really can't participate on committees or may not have the time. You got folks who are oil field workers who have to leave to work sometimes in other places. So I think that that would be a particularly harsh requirement, and I think that it would go completely contrary to democracy, which opens up these kinds of public servitude positions for everybody. For people like me, for people like you, for people like my mom, for people like my dad, for people like Eddie, anybody can serve. I don't care what you do for a living. Admittedly, it doesn't matter if I'm a businessman. I just have to want to have good intentions. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now open up for a second question from the audience. I will go to the lady at the end. The question, by the way, goes first to Mr. Villarreal.
Okay. So this is going to be a hard question. So the question is this. I was looking at some of the House bills, and there's a House bill number 4103 that's been sponsored by our local representative, Mr. Ian. The House bill addresses the municipal judge. It indicates here that the judge of a municipal court serves for a term of office for 2 years unless a municipality provides for a longer term pursuant to the section. Now, it also says that a municipal court judge who is not reappointed by the 91st day following the expiration of a term of office shall absent action by the appointing authority continue to serve for another term of office, beginning on the date the previous term of office expires. Basically, he would be automatically renewed if the governing body does not take action. Would this change your positions on the municipal judge and the credentials of the municipal judge? That's my question. If this House bill, it's gone already through the House, it's set to go through the Senate. So if it passes, will it change your position and perspective? And were you aware of it, since this is sponsored by your state representative?
2 minutes, Mr. Villarreal.
No, I was not aware of it. I was not aware of it. What's interesting, though, is we've had many questions about the municipal judge position. It is just amazing. Wow. I mean, is it really contentious for this position? And why are we even investing so much energy and time on this one question? Yes, I would take a look at it. No, I was not familiar, but I would certainly read the House bill and see how it applies. And again, going back to evaluating the position based on the information that you're providing, and address it. It's just, again, it's to me, it's amazing how one position, in a sense, has so many questions. I mean, I'm sure there could have been other questions more pertaining to the city's needs and where we should be headed. And we're talking about a municipal court position that does not pay much. Now, of course, obviously, we need to be looking at going back to some of those qualifications. Now, I know that the municipal court position is a contracted position. Now, there are benefits to being a contracted position. One, you don't have to pay any benefits. And that's something that we certainly have to look at. But going back to the question, yes, I would look at it, consider it, evaluate it, and make a decision. but I need to have the information first and foremost and visit with Representative Ian to get more direction on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pena, you get the same question, you get 2 minutes.
May I ask for a clarification on the House bill? Is that possible? Is it
Yes.
eliminating an oath?
Yes. Yes, it is eliminating an oath. And also taking effect without government action.
Thank you. You know, I don't know the history behind, I don't know how exactly Representative Guillen would factor in to Mr. Leo Lopez. I just know that I gotta go back to this. It doesn't change my opinion, clearly. My opinion is what my opinion is. But I think the question is such a hot topic regardless of the amount of money that's involved, because it just symbolizes, I mean, it's just right there. It just symbolizes what has been so wrong between the relationship between our school and our city. And just to re-emphasize, you have Mr. Bacho Villarreal, you have Mr. Leo Lopez, you have Ruben Villarreal, Bacho's brother, then you have a school employee sitting on the commission along with Mr. Chachi. Then you've got the EDC that brings the same commissioners in pretty much and brings in other school employees, which I have to add over the course of the past 10 years. If I'm not mistaken, your wife sat on the EDC as well, who is a school employee. And then we have Mr. Leo Lopez's brother, I guess because they wanted to lend some diversity to the EDC, also sitting on the EDC. So then the question becomes, why is the municipal judge position so important? Because it symbolizes everything that has been wrong between our city and our school. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Villarreal, you get 2 minutes for rebuttal.
The hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. I mean, we claim that there is a school district and you have the city. How is that any different from what actually is going on now? How is that any different? Mr. Pena, who's your campaign treasurer involved in the school district? So is it any different now? What are we trying to say? No. We go back to this individual, that individual. That's not, again, deja vu once again from previous election. Deja vu. Blaming certain individuals, transparency, accountability, fair hiring practices, nepotism. What? What is the difference now? The difference is what, Mr. Pena? It is amazing to me the level of hypocrisy. It makes no sense. Now, are we talking about what taking over as well? What are we saying? Yes? Did I hear a yes? Come on. At this point, what I'm here to do is the right thing for Rio Grande City and the residents of Rio Grande City, without all this innuendo about what is wrong and what has been wrong, and again, the same thing over and over again.
10 seconds.
It just boggles my mind that the level of hypocrisy that we are getting to. And to me, again, going back to...
Thank you, Mr. Villarreal. A question from the center of the room. I've taken a question from my right side. I will now direct myself to the left side. Is there a question from this side of the auditorium before I return to the center? No? Go ahead. Well, the lady, could you use the mic, please? And the question will be answered first by Mr. Pena.
What steps have you taken or have taken in the past prior to running to get to know any of the city employee or staff that you are hoping to lead? There are 150 employees. What steps have you taken to get to know each and every one of them or some of them?
2 minutes, Mr. Pena.
Yes, I actually have known a lot of the commissioners that sit on the board, if we can define that as city employees. I can certainly tell you that I grew up with some of them. I grew up with Ray Ramirez and Mr. Garza, Mr. Arcadio Salinas, a wonderful gentleman. For some reason, I haven't really seen him at some of the commission meetings or whatnot. But I gotta admit something, you know, it was really difficult to get to know a lot of folks when they weren't quite being objective. And I can tell you that it's coming from a group of city commissioners when on signing day everybody goes to your fellow candidate's signing day and nobody shows up at yours. I'd say that's pretty non-objective, particularly, you know, because they know me. And I'm thinking, man, I'm insulted here. Like, you know, I get up there, I say hello to some of these folks, and I'm thinking, you've already made a decision about me, and you're a commissioner? Like, aren't you supposed to be the type of people that kind of weigh your decisions and really just kind of look at? No one really asked me about, you know, why I was running. Nobody, nothing. And I presented the opportunity. So, as far as I'm concerned, there were a lot of minds that were made up. Thank you.
Mr. Villarreal, same question, 2 minutes.
I have worked with many of the city employees at City Hall here in Rio Grande City. And I'm going back to volunteering the time. And so has my wife has served many hours of community service at City Hall as well. Together we have. Even my son has served, just being with us because we didn't have a babysitter, so he comes along. And it is great. There are a lot of wonderful people working at City Hall. A lot of wonderful people. And it's been a pleasure to work with them, to sit with them, to actually share ideas about the improvement of Rio Grande City. And we'll continue to do that. Now, there are many folks that are afraid. They're afraid. We're not bringing a stability. And I want to continue to express that stability to all city employees and to the residents of Rio Grande City, because I bring stability, I bring experience and the know-how that when I don't know something, I will ask. Because I am not an expert in many fields, no. But I'm willing to sit down and visit with people who are. Going back to making a decision. So serving my community I have, and serving with wonderful people at City Hall, it's been a pleasure. And I will continue to serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Peña, you've got 2 minutes for rebuttal.
I wish I could talk about the type of serving my community that I just can't. And I see the smile on some of my fellow attorneys' faces. We're not allowed to talk about our public servitude. It doesn't only stop at City Hall. I mean, there's some folks who actually, I've never turned down somebody who needed help. Somebody losing their home, somebody couldn't afford legal advice. And yeah, 5 months as an attorney, but even as a businessman. T-ball coaching. There's some folks in here that are not on my side who had kids on our team. So public servitude takes a lot of forms. And if you're going to set that standard, you're going to put that bar up there. Just like that bar that exists for somebody to serve as a city manager, that 5 years, it removes everybody, doesn't it? So if you require everybody to serve at City Hall and get to know everybody at City Hall, I think given the past 10 to 15 years, there's not a lot of people in this room who would qualify. And that's not the intent of public servitude. That's not the intent. That's not the intent. That's not the purpose of democracy. Thank you.
Thank you. At this moment, we will head into closing remarks. Mr. Villarreal will get 3 minutes for his closing remarks. Mr. Peña will get 3 minutes for his closing remarks, and then I will get unlimited time for my closing remarks. Mr. Villarreal, go ahead, 3 minutes.
First of all, thank you all for being here today. Rio Grande City wins tonight because we have platforms. And now you have a choice. You have a choice to make. Make your choice based on platforms, which you've heard here today, and with visits in the future. So I believe that Rio Grande City has won. I have, as I mentioned, the experience and the know-how to visit with individuals. Now, one of the primary focuses of a mayor, is to enforce the city charter, to protect it, to enforce it, to comply with it. And as per city charter, I'm the only eligible candidate to run for office. As per city charter, Article 2, Section 2.01, letter B, it stipulates that a candidate shall have resided in the city 1 year prior to filing his or her application. Mr. Peña filed April 23rd of 2014. The same time last year, well, 2015, I should say, the same time last year, he was in law school. He was living, working, and attending law school last year. He graduated May 2014 as per State Bar Association. The academic calendar has him graduating mid-May, actually May the 9th. Now, the residence requirement at the law school stipulates that the last 30 semester hours must be completed in residence at the law school. So it's in direct violation of the city charter. After all, we are here to enforce our city charter, to protect it, and when there's time to make modifications, put it out there and address it. Now that's one thing that we need to be considering, and you folks need to know. At some point, this goes to the integrity of what Mr. Peña is claiming. Has he lived here enough time to comply with the city charter? And it's resided in the city. Not have residency, but resided in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Peña, you have 3 minutes.
You just changed my whole closing statement. Did you render a legal opinion, or is that just desperation, Mr. Villarreal? Because I have a problem with your definition of residing. You said resided and you said lived, and they're two extremely different things. Let me just shed some light on it. Matter of fact, I'm not even going to talk about the legalities of it. I'm just going to say, I own a house in Rio Grande City, and I pay taxes on that house. It's always been my intention to live in that house. And I own another property in Rio Grande City that I pay taxes on. Maybe later on it's my intention to build another house on it. I own a business in Rio Grande City, and I've owned that business for the past 7-8 years. And I ran that business, and I worked in that business the whole time that I was in law school. As a matter of fact, people thought that I was crazy because I would have to fly back and forth during my finals to run that business when auditors were there. And in the very end, you're going to tell me that I don't reside in Rio Grande City. You just disqualified pretty much every oil field worker in Rio Grande City. You know? So if you're an oil field worker, don't run for mayor, because you have to leave this city to go make a living. Trust me, Mr. Villarreal, I looked and I couldn't find a law school here, and I really, really looked. But in the very end, I see a lot of potential in this city, and I'm happy that I can at least shoot for the stars here, so to speak, to get something done. Because I can tell you, contrary to what Mr. Villarreal has proposed, we have one empty space in our plaza. And matter of fact, we've been so successful that we're putting up another plaza across the street, right by Stripes, so that we can house our shooting range. We've been that successful, and I know that Rio Grande City has potential. I see it. So in the very end, I'm going to borrow some words from you, Mr. Villarreal. Let the people choose. Thank you.
I'm not sure if the organizers of this debate will have any words after this, but I'd like to end with, I'm a very vanilla type of person. I hope no one came in expecting fireworks and explosions in here. Having said that, voters, you're faced with two problems. One of them is both candidates are well qualified, and the other one is both candidates are well qualified. And that's a matter of fact for most elections. Elections are not necessarily about electing the perfect person. They are about the will of the people. It is the people who decide in which direction they want society and government to proceed. Government belongs to the people. I want to wish both candidates and the citizens of Rio Grande City the best of luck in this upcoming election. Thank you for attending tonight's debate.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joel Correa, and I am the president of the Starr County Young Voters Association at South Texas College. I just want to take this moment to thank the candidates for being here today. Mr. Herrera, Mr. Peña, on behalf of the Starr County Young Voters, I want to thank you personally for being here today. Also, I would like to thank our organization members, Heidi, and all other organization members today. Without our vice president and our members, we couldn't have done this tonight. Thank you very much for coming in, and God bless you and have a great night.